Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm dear darling. Should we see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhallow today, where we're relaxing basically as per usual. Nothing particularly crazy going on. What to really talk about? Played a bit more Gunfire Reborn yesterday. Trying to think what even happened. We defeated the final boss again. I can't remember his name, but the dual wielder, whatever his name is. He's got those dual wielding grenade launchers, which made for a very explosive finish. But hello there, everyone. Right now in Fawnhallow, it's 6:15 p.m. on Monday, October 13th, 2025. Right now, well, I'm recording this before D&D. There's not much to really prepare, like, resource-wise for D&D, because, well, I'm not expecting a fight. There is an emergency fight if they do choose to do it, I suppose, plan. I don't think they're going to fight, probably. But it's, if anything, it's going to be a little bit underwhelming, I think, with thing that's immediately about to happen. Maybe. Or maybe it's not, I don't know. Kind of, in my opinion, depends on how the player takes the character's reaction to it. But with this campaign, I've said, it's like they've had like almost in like 4 or 5 consecutive sessions, just like a big revelation after a big revelation after a big revelation after a big revelation, which it was not how I intended it to go. It's just more they stack things on top of each other. And I can say, like, pulling back behind the curtain a bit is there were some other revelations I thought were going to happen, but then other things came up to be revealed instead, which I was like, okay, then I'll pull back on these revelations a little bit, because, you know, this is the sort of DM debates that you might see. You know, again, this is more meta talk, I suppose, for my players. I'm not going to say specifically what happens, but I'm going to more talk around what happens. Is there are a lot of plot points in the campaign that I've done. You know, there's a lot of like interesting sort of things to like learn about and discover, but by the nature of it, it's, you know, going to take some time to discover most of the time. And sometimes I don't exactly know when they'll make that, put like the points together, or when they'll discover something. So in my mind, you know, some of these are meant to be like sort of like mid game or like late game sort of discoveries, but sometimes they do something and then the only thing which makes sense is like, okay, if you do that you will get a discovery. But, you know, then it comes from a DM perspective being like, okay, well, does it make sense to have this discovery now? Because obviously, like, this could completely change the nature of a campaign or something, you know. It will maybe completely ruin the viewpoint of who I'm building up to be like the villain so far, or something like, or maybe like one of the twists, like good people will become the villain like almost immediately. That's just kind of how it goes as a DM. And, you know, I think certainly when I was starting out, I like to think I didn't railroad too much. I mean, no, I railroad in more of a practical sense than what I attempt from a narrative sense. Railroad more in the sense of like, I haven't prepared that. There is nothing for you there that I've planned, and even if I think about it, it doesn't make sense for anything to be there, so in my opinion there's no point of you doing this. That's the kind of railroading I do. But sometimes as well, you know, situations happen, like if they go off track, when I'm like, okay, you can absolutely do that if you want. I think probably the best example, which did not even end up happening, much to my chagrin, was with the other campaign, where they basically said they're just going to go to this kingdom for almost no apparent reason. And I was like, you literally can. This kingdom does exist. It is perhaps not very relevant to you at all whatsoever. If you go there, it will literally, nothing related to any of this plot will happen. But you can go there if you want. And they were like, yep. And then at the start of the next campaign, they were like, no, wait, we're going to go somewhere else. And I was like, okay, fine. I'm like, on one hand, I'm happy because this one makes a lot more sense. But on the other hand, I'm like, come on. Which, in retrospect, probably is too lenient as a DM. I probably should have been like, you're not going there. There makes no sense for you to go there. But I also think because a lot of my world is a lot more fleshed out than necessarily you might expect be cool as. But there are multiple campaigns in the same world, right? So, like, some of the campaigns, some of the stuff I have fleshed out is because I needed to think about it for the other campaign. It's kind of why I did them both in the same campaign, because it sort of halves the amount of world building I need to do. Well, not really. More like it cuts out a third of the world building, but then you need to do a lot more world building in parallel, is perhaps the best way to put it. So yeah. But yeah, there's been a lot of plot revelations in that one over there, which makes it very sort of strange, I think, to manage. strange to sort of think about as well. Because they have actually genuinely 2 more sort of like plot revelations. One of them can actually be pushed like significantly further, like it doesn't have to happen now. It was just I had it on the back burner, and on a meta level I was like, this can come up basically at any point, but I was intending to actually do it maybe around this session, if you asked me like 6 sessions ago or something, because I was like, I will throw it in when there feels like they're hitting a snag with investigation or a lull, or something where they're like, we're not sure what to do now, this can be a good prompt. That didn't happen, obviously. But there's another one which is also a pretty big revelation, which I'm 50-50 on how much if I should delay it or not. One, it is like a kind of related to one of the previous revelations they've already had, so it's not going to be as big a surprise. But on the other hand, they've already got like a lot of back-to-back sort of chats and meetings, so it's sort of just like I don't know, we're gonna have to see. But yeah, I do have a way theoretically around it in my mind. I don't know if it's the best way to do it, but still. We will just have to see, to be honest. Yeah. But I'm not going to talk about that the entire time. Should I talk about my gacha games a little bit, what's been going on? I'm trying to think. The Champions Meet, I have qualified for Grade A final. Do I think I'm going to win the Grade A final? No. I am at least trying to build up a Gold City for the Champions Meet. Whether that's going to be plausible or not, I don't really know. But Gold City is, I think, you know, established out. I thought Manhattan Cafe was my favourite character. I think Gold City is, after reading his story. So it's hard to say. I don't know. Maybe Manhattan Cafes will be phenomenal as well. I don't know. Your mileage may vary. But yeah, I'm trying to build one just kind of for funsies. Mainly because my Norita Taishin is like not doing that hot, I suppose. In it. But also at the same time, it's kind of like troublesome building a late stage surge so late on. So I don't know. If I get a good one, then I'll put it in instead of I don't know, maybe instead of Karen Chan. But I think Karen Chan's actually been doing pretty well, to be honest. Karen Chan is a tech pick for when there's exactly like 1 to 5 front runners. But yeah, that's basically what's been going on. What else has been going on? Nothing else crazy that I can really think of, to be honest. I got a very strange request from one of my friends, actually, is to go to a place and pick up a branded pen. Not like a merch pen necessarily, but you know how like a load of companies often have just like pens, like they give out, you know, like career fairs or, you know, not marketing, what are they called, like networking events, things like that. Well, the reason my friend has requested that I go pick one up from this other company. I don't know. I probably should have checked it. I don't think it's like a high priority thing. I think it's just a if I pass by sort of thing. Let me double check. I don't know, because I'm also planning to buy some other stuff on Tuesday. So, well, Tuesday being tomorrow. So certainly have to see how that goes. Because I'm planning on basically buying a load of UK sort of snacks to bring on holiday, essentially. It's like a nice little gift. But yeah, what else to talk about? Good question. I don't know what's going on at r/games. It's normally what I turn to when I don't know what else to talk about. I don't know how this D&D session's going to go, to be honest. Like, it's very much like in the hands, I think, of the players of deciding what they're doing. And, you know, like everything is built up enough that I know what would happen even if they do improvise and catch me off guard with what they want to talk about. I think a lot of it, but they're basically now in this sort of like, let's close out all these loops sort of thing. I don't know what they're necessarily going to do about it, because I think like some of the main threads that they have on their main current, like, the main story quest at the moment. They know what they need to probably end up doing, but it's sort of like actually doing it is probably the hard part. Yeah, and that will probably be more of a signifier of, like, that's the end of Act 2. I don't know when Act 2 necessarily started, to be honest. It kind of feels like it's already started. Like, we had the intro act, we had the prologue, which is the session 0s, or the session 0.5s, Act 1, when we hit, like, level 5 or so. End of Act 2 should be coming soon, for one of the groups. The other groups have delayed once again, so I don't know. Their Act 2 and Act 3 are sort of interweaving with each other. If this was a narrative story, probably they would reorder the actual events that this happened in to make Act 2 more neatly happen first. But the interesting question is where they're going to go after. What this group is going to do, what we're going to do after resolving this. There are basically two possibilities, with technically an extra third possibility on top of it if they wanted to. But that one I'm planning more to be like an overarching sort of late game sort of scenario, but I'm not sure. Because it's interesting, again from DM, I'm trying to keep it vague, but one direction we can go in is take a more proactive direction, which I actually think probably will be the direction that we go with as my guess. Because another one is sort of more like an ongoing thing. Or I could make them go into the direction of another one. No, I think I'll do this. And if it's actually, I can't tell you what I'm thinking about, but like the thought I just had of like, oh yeah, thinking ahead, like what we're going to do after this, I should probably make it more explicit, like now, I suppose, rather than later. So we can actually have like a through line. And actually, now I think about it, that's actually a really good one for them to do next, because it's pretty close to another area as well, which we can also dive in and out of if they want to explore that conceptually. That'd be kind of interesting, actually. I didn't even consider about that before. Well, anyway, doesn't matter now. A lot of DM planning to do a bit more like. Yes, excuse me. Yeah. What else do I really want to talk about? I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. My headphones are coming, I think, tomorrow. They said they were dispatched. I should probably double check that, but I actually realised I completely forgot about another thing which I was going to tell a friend beforehand. Let me see. Arriving tomorrow. Track package. Out for delivery? Not out for delivery. It's just dispatched. When did I order it? Yesterday? No, I ordered it on Friday. Don't know. Took a bit longer than expected. So be it. Yeah. How's a headphone hook? Headphone hook's pretty good. Find it pretty useful to actually hold this stuff. I don't know what I'm going to be talking about and what I'm going to be titling this episode now I think about it. Just sort of like what's happening. But that's like what every episode is. Every episode is what's happening in my life right now. I don't know. I guess it's more like big plot discoveries. It's an interesting thing because D&D obviously is not, or any sort of tabletop RPG or collaborative storytelling experience, is not necessarily determined by one person, so I can't really set the pacing by myself, right? The pacing is completely arbitrary depending on what I was going to say clients, that's the wrong word, what my friends, my players end up doing. So it's sort of just like if they have a big plot discovery, like I can't time it in a way which makes sense. I can't pace things out because I'm trying to think, like, if I was looking from a meta-narrative level of what the campaign was going on, they'd probably be like, oh, you know, if it's, imagine this was a series or something, you know, like Vox Machina style, but it was translated one-to-one of exactly what happened in the campaign. People might read the book and be like, okay, it kind of like lulls toward the start of Act 2, but, you know, Act 2 really picks up around the middle, you know, when everything starts to sort of come together. You know, Act 2, the start of Act 2 is basically like putting up the dominoes, and it feels like nothing's happening until boom, 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 all the dominoes start falling. What I'm most interested in will probably be the start of Act 3 for both parties, or might be like the start of build up, but my plan for Act 4 will be very interesting. Of what's going to happen. What will happen? Well, they'll just have to see. And I have a feeling Act 4 might be a lot faster, but I think it might be, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. In my mind, like, I kind of already can imagine what the final boss is going to look like. I don't know if I'll make it to that necessarily, because maybe that might change, but, you know, it's so sort of intrinsically linked to the law of the world that it was pretty difficult to not imagine what it might be like to begin with too. Anyway, yeah, it's interesting to think of these like campaigns from like a meta-narrative sort of like plot point perspective. Because in some aspects, I think it might be like, oh, yeah, this was like really cool foreshadowing or something. Like, there was actually one which they had recently, which they didn't quite remember without prompting, which is totally fair. I don't expect them to, because they didn't understand it at the time. But basically, there's an interaction. It was a very weird interaction they had, which, you know, at the time, I'm sure was just like, oh, you know, the end is like some transitionary period, just doing some sort of fun things between Act 1 and Act 2, and was just kind of weird, if anything. But that person reacted in a very specific, very strange way, which no other character had reacted to this player character before. And then they met a character again, a very important character, who also reacted in the same way. And then, you know, I'm not going to keep that from them. You know, part of the fact is I don't expect them to remember something from, I think, literally 40 sessions ago. I remember it because I made a plot point, so it's very easy for me to remember. But it's harder for them to remember. But they did eventually sort of link it back when I was just like, hey, you know, you roll an intelligence check and you sort of think back on things. There's a vague memory of someone else reacting in a very similar way. And then the player character was like, oh yeah. And I was like, you probably don't remember because it didn't make sense at the time. And he was like, yeah, that didn't make sense at the time. But he did make a note on it. And that's a wonderful thing, in fact. This player has taken his notes in the Foundry vehicle itself. So I'm actually able to check it and be like, ah, yes. I can verify that, yes, this is information that he did realise and understand and pick up on. Which is a little harder for me to do for my other players, which is, again, totally fine. Because a lot of them at least do tell me. And I do encourage them to be like, tell me what you think you know, otherwise I don't know. But yeah. I don't know. I think this is something I think about a lot because I'm very obsessed with sort of narrative in a way. Stories in general. I want it to be cohesive, but I know it's going to be impossible because, you know, multitudes of factors, as a large part being of factors in improvisational process. I can't predict exactly everything that's going on. But a lot of it as well, I'm just sort of like, it would be really nice if I could pull this off. So when the moments do actually happen, where it makes sense, something sort of comes together, then it's like, ooh, satisfying, isn't it? Anyway. On that note, I'm going to round this episode off here. So if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons, and I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope to see each other again, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now.